Hello everyone, this is Eric Conrad, and I'm here to talk about long tail analysis, ways to cut through large amounts of data and find the signal in the noise. I'm going to pre-apologize my voice. I'm recovering from the flu very slowly. So I'll pre-apologize for my voice, but I wanted to get this done before I headed off to Brussels, Belgium next week to teach Security 511. And I just started off here on the SANS Cyber Defense website, where you probably found this video. And also wanted to give a shout out to Security 511. You can go to sec511.com and that'll redirect to SANS. And if you're interested in long tail analysis, some of the concepts I talk about today, we have a whole class wrapped around that and a whole lot more. Excuse me, that's my voice, called Security 511 Continuous Monitoring and Security Operations. Again, the easiest way to go is just sec511.com, as I just did there, and you'll redirect. And we're going all around the world. I jokingly call this our Sec 511 World Tour. Belgium, Arizona, Reston. I'm going to be in Singapore, APAC a few times, including Canberra. We're going to be in Europe a number of times, including London and Amsterdam and Brussels, all over the US, San Diego, and on and on and on. Online as well. So I hope to see you there. And so long tail analysis, the idea is this. So let's say we have some logs. I've been playing around here with the Windows 8 VM from Security 511. We provide a Windows 8 VM to you, and it's got some pre-canned stuff in there, including this event log. So security log, I should say, security event log. And this log is a real log. It came from my lab laptops, excuse me, formerly my wife's desktop / laptop. And then she outgrew that, went to a Mac. I used it for labs and demos and classes and whatnot. And I thought it'd be a good test of long tail analysis. And so I'm going to open it up, and it's got, tons of events in here, 30,399 events. And if I ask a junior staff member, or really almost anyone who's not trained in these concepts, find the interesting things or the bad things. Find out what's worth looking at. Find out things that are worth escalating here. And just about anyone would fail because you've got over 30,000 events, and you can kind of go onesie twosie, which is going to be a recipe for failure. And how do I find the bad stuff? And there's a couple of approaches. One of the approaches is a blacklist. A blacklist is tell me about these things. And blacklisting, I want to know about event 4624, which would be a very bad blacklist entry, but tell me about this. And I want to know these things are bad, these things are interesting. Tell me about these specific event IDs. And that's one way to go. And that's certainly useful. And in Security 511, we talk about 10 or 12 events that you should be looking for. This is not one of them. So one of the approaches is, I know these events historically are bad, so tell me about them. And that does work, but there's going to be failures there too. So what if there's a new bad event you've never seen before? And it's unique. How do you find that? Because the problem with the blacklist is you can only find things you've identified previously as being bad, and you look for them in the future. Well, what if something brand new happens, some malware drops, you've never seen it before, boom, and it's the first time you've seen this event? Blacklist is not going to find that. So how do you find this kind of thing? And you can stumble around as most people do. And again, I got 30,000 events here. I could jump out to a PowerShell prompt, and I've already got it preloaded here. Get win event dash path. Of course, we have this is a PowerShell now, and we have the dot slash, although the slash reads backwards to my Unix-based understanding, but that's okay. You'll get over that. And you got a ton of events. And by the way, I want to give a shout out to Mark Baggett. He had a nice little trick. If I can search this properly, Mark Baggett with 2 T's. Color PowerShell, I think was it. He had a nice trick that he found. By the way, I'm Eric Conrad, Eric_Conrad on Twitter. Feel free to follow me. And I think that'll find it. Yeah. So Josh Wright, another SANS guy, mentioned this cool little trick, which I didn't know about till I read this tweet. You want to change the color. Normally, I go through the very non-optimal way of settings, blah 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 blah. You can do the old school Command-C, which run a DOS or cmd.exe command from PowerShell, color F0. So we'll do that. cmd/c color F0. Boom. And we'll make this a little bit, blow this up a little bit so you can see this better. And I'll increase the font as well. We'll give you a 20-point font. Why not? All right. So again, I can say, hey, what's bad in here? And you're probably going to fail, right? Because look at this stuff. And it's going to go on and on and on. And clearly, you realize the most common entries are the least useful. The more common something is, the least useful it is. And as a general rule, this is not an absolute rule, it's a general rule. And that's what factors into long tail analysis. So if I want to even dig down to specific things, like I wanted to do a little, just to talk this command now, get win event. I'm pulling win events, Windows event logs from, in this case, a path, a file. And I could also look at the general, my actual, I'm going to need an admin PowerShell for this. So I can look at the actual built-in one. I think I'm going to get an error on this because, blah, blah, blah. The big ugly error that you get when you try to do something that you don't have privileges for, cannot retrieve information. I need an admin PowerShell, which I think I have opened up over here. Yeah. So I can pull the actual live security log from this system. And this is just a Windows 8 VM. I literally, it's a class VM. I booted it today. You can see how chatty these things are. It's going on and on and on about really nothing. Nothing's really happened to the system. I turned it on, I prepped it a bit, and I got ready to teach this little demo here. And if you want to find out like how chatty something is, it's been turned on for not that long. So I did a little. I want to find events from today. Today for me it was January 19th, 2015. You'll be hearing this later, of course. And then the WC equivalent, which I always forget for PowerShell, is measure-object. How many? What I'm saying here is get win event, the security log. How many since I've turned this thing on? Probably under an hour ago. So I'm going to do a little find string, which is the cmd.exe alternative to grep, or one of them. And then measure object is the PowerShell equivalent or substitute for WC or word count -L in this case for the number of lines. How many lines did I just grab? So 252 lines in about an hour or so, because you can see it started at 1250 and went on to not even 126, so just over half an hour. So imagine you've got a network of 10,000 systems, 20,000 systems, all pumping hundreds and hundreds of logs or thousands of logs per day, and you've got this giant SOC trying to suck all that in and correlate that, and that usually leads to failures. Most SOCs are failed, security operations centers. Most SOCs are what I call compliance SOCs. They're there to serve the gods of compliance, and they're not there to be tactical. And people actually resist when I tell them to make their SOC more tactical, meaning give their admins a chance to fight. Give the SOC admins, whoever is sitting in that role, give them a chance to win. Because one of the things we say a lot in 5.11 is this is how we fight and this is how we win. All networks will be breached. All prevention fails at some point. And what's your plan then? And for most companies, when prevention fails, it's a catastrophic failure. They have what I call the all prevent defense. And once that fails, once those shields appear, so to speak, it tends to be a catastrophic failure. I can give you hundreds, thousands of case studies from all kinds of companies in the news. I'll try not to name them by name, but all the credit card breaches, on and on and on, endless stuff. And often because once prevention fails, it's a total failure. So if you're swimming in untold thousands, millions of logs, how do you find the bad stuff? One way, as I mentioned, is a blacklist. Another way is long tail analysis. So again, if I want to dig to these events, I want to know more about event 4672. I could do this. Let's see here. Actually, I'll go back to this guy over here. I'll build up this. So let's say I want to know more about event 4624. I'm going to change my syntax a little bit. I'm going to do a filter hash table. Syntax is a bit different for this one. Of course, there's more than one way to do it for a lot of this kind of stuff. PowerShell is awesome, by the way. If you come from a Unix background, as I do, give it a spin. We often wondered for years why Windows was lacking an actual shell, a real shell. I mean, cmd.exe is fine. It's actually more powerful than you probably know, but it's not Bash. It's not anything close to Bash, and PowerShell is the bomb. 4634. I just want to get more information on 4634. So get win event, filter hash table, which is one way to search. I'm setting my path to be the local file. I'm setting the ID to 4634, and now I'm just grabbing that event. Now, what is that event? Account was logged off. I want to know a little more. I'll pipe to FL format list, and it's going to fly by. I'll do Control C. And this is a garbage log. This event is generated when a logon session is destroyed, which happens constantly, as you can see, because these things fly by all day long. So usually what people do is they suck in untold millions of logs from thousands of systems, and they do it for compliance reasons, and it's not very, very effective. And then they find a few event IDs they might key on, the blacklist I mentioned, and that's okay. But there's another approach that's very, very complementary to that, and that's long tail analysis. Now I'm going to set something up because this is going to take a little while to run, and I'm going to go back to this and hold this thought. I promise I'll talk through it, but it's going to churn for a while. You can see tab complete works. I'm performing long tail analysis right here on this log. I want to find out the most useful, well, the least common events. And the least common events are often the most useful events, as we'll see. Now, it's not 100%. We'll talk about this, but it's a great way to find that signal in this sea. You're looking at a sea of noise here. Let's find that signal. That's going to churn for a while. So let's get out of here. I'm going to show you a few slides from 511. All right, so long tail analysis is our term for finding the signal in the noise. And this is, I don't know if it's breaking new ground on intrusion detection and continuous monitoring. We came up with this independently. I'm not saying we invented it, but we did come up with this independently. We named this independently. Others may have done so in parallel. I don't know. But it's a technique that Seth Meisner and myself, Seth Meisner is a co-author of 511, well, lead author. I'm co-author of 511. And we developed these fighting the real fight. I've been in the trenches for over 20 years. And I think I know how to defend, not to sound egotistical, but I think I can defend better than most. And one of the things we often fight is just it's waves of data. And certainly SOCs that sit on millions of events, they end up drowning in data. And then the auditors come in and they say, do you have a SOC? Are you correlating these events? Yes, yes, yes. The auditors leave and compliance boxes check. But how effective is that? In reality, often very, very ineffective from a tactical standpoint, from a fighting standpoint. So, and we hear this all the time. Oh, Eric, these techniques might work for 100 systems, but I have 10,000, so fail, fail, fail. And they work. This scales. So long tail analysis is simple. Sort them. Sort your millions of events by event ID, as I just did. I'll talk to what I just did in a minute. And then look at the least common entries. Counts of 10,000, 5,000, probably not important. Counts of 1, 2, 3, worth looking at. Not 100%, but worth looking at. And beware the trap of the perfect. Well, a couple of things: the perfect solution fallacy, and also simple solutions to complex problems. This is a fairly simple solution, but it requires what the government calls an SME, a subject matter expert, to go in and eyeball this stuff and make a determination. And I can't tell you count of one equals bad. I can't tell you that. Count of one out of thousands equals unusual and worth looking at by someone. Now, perhaps your tier one analyst will look at this, and how I train tier one analysts, I say, if you could figure this out, it's bad, escalate. It's not bad, it's benign. Clear it out. If you're not sure, escalate. That's how I treat it. And you'll find some people have a knack for this kind of thing, and some people don't. It is a trainable skill, but obviously foster the people who have a knack for it. They may be in your help desk, they may be junior staff. Foster that skill is a key skill to have, especially when your prevention fails. Your prevention has failed. Your prevention will fail. And you have to plan for that day. Our Fortune 500 companies aren't planning well for that day. They haven't, based on the news. You have to plan for the eventuality of your prevention failing, and this is a key technique to help you now. So when you're dealing with a sea of data, including Windows event logs, as I've been looking at here, installed software, registry run keys, 10,000 systems means X times 10,000 registry run keys, a startup key. How do you look at that? Sort them. Just take them all and sort them, look at the least common, because malware does two things that helps us catch it once prevention fails. Malware wants to be persistent. It wants to survive a reboot. On a Windows system, it's going to reboot on average at least monthly, if not much faster than that, in almost any company due to Microsoft Patch Tuesday, laptops more frequently, and the malware doesn't want to lose all the traction, all the ground it's gained by a simple reboot erasing it. So it wants to survive that reboot, and there's only a handful of ways to do that, maybe two, and registry run key is the most common way to do it. So pull down all your registry run keys. We have a lab on this in 511. Sort them. The counts of 10,000 you can safely ignore. The counts of one you want to look at. Now, could that be a one-off, CPA with some tax software installed only on his or her PC? Sure, but that's the easy one to clear out. you'll find malware this way. Startup registry run keys, as I said, DNS logs. DNS logs, in this case, the longest is the most interesting, or are the most interesting. The longest requests, the longest replies tend to be the most interesting. Are you logging DNS? Most cases, the answer is no. And if you are logging DNS, most people think of DNS as a correlation issue, which is fine, or a blacklisting issue. This domain is bad, sure. How about just look at the really, really long requests and long responses? You'll catch C2 this way. C2 is command and control, and it's a way to maintain a connection. So malware wants to remain persistent. That's one way to catch it. And malware wants to phone home, as we say. We call it phone home, off ET phone home. Almost all modern malware phones home. 99+% of it tries to phone home. Reach out to a controller, reach out to a botnet of some sort, and that reach out can also be caught through things like DNS, because DNS makes an ideal C2 channel. Why? It's allowed and it's ignored, usually. Most companies treat DNS like electricity. It's binary. It's working or not. Even heavily filtered networks like your SOCS, things like that, often allow DNS resolution, and DNS resolution is proxy. A DNS forwarder is a proxy. We don't think of it that way, but it's true. So even on very, very tightly controlled networks with limited or, in theory, no internet connectivity directly, DNS can get out through forwarders, and that makes an ideal C2 channel. So we talk about all these things and have labs on these in 5.11. Let's now focus on Windows event logs. So here's the long tail, and this is I got this graph from Wikipedia. And the long tail, the term came about from retail. And the idea was, the long tail was companies like Walmart and whatnot, and historically Kmart and Sears. They serve the fat end of the tail. Sears back and say, Sears is a dying breed, of course, but 10, 20, 30 years ago, they're not going to sell 5 of something. They're going to sell 50,000 of something, right? So if they're going to sell a washing machine, it's not 5, it's tens or 50, tens or hundreds of thousands of things. And so retail historically served the fat end of the tail. And what's happened with, our internet revolution continuing is we have companies like eBay and Etsy and all kinds of little small companies serving the long end of the tail, that flat part down here, where onesie, twosie, threesie suddenly is a viable option. The long tail for retail was saying the long tail is actually most of the opportunity. Historically, it was the hardest to catch because it's hard, it doesn't scale the way most businesses commonly scale. But if you can monetize that, and that's what Etsy, et cetera, have done, that there's a lot of money there. Now, how does that apply to us? It's basically the graph applies to us. It turns out instead of talking about washing machines or macrame quilts or something, you're talking about Windows event logs. It turns out if you sort them, these ones up here, the fat part of the tail is noise. Ignore it. Don't even store it long term. Maybe have 24 hours of that and then flush it out, or maybe put it in cold storage. But the long end of the tail here is interesting. This is the onesie, twosie, threesie. So I took this is the command I just ran. And I took the T510, that's been my little road warrior. It sadly just died, actually. The screen just fried on it, and it's old enough that it's probably not worth saving. But it was a good example of this because it's free data. And by the way, we'll post some links to this talk. But if you want a copy of the actual event log I'm looking at, just email me. You can email me at econrad@gmail.com. So econrad, I'll type it out here. Well, I don't really have a handy. Here we go. Let's do this. We'll dress this up with links and whatnot, but just so we have it, I just want to capture this now. If you want a copy of this, email me there, okay? And email me there, and I'll send you a copy of this log, this event log. You can actually try this yourself. All you need is PowerShell. PowerShell is available for Vista and newer. You've got PowerShell. Almost certainly, if you have Windows, you want to try this stuff out yourself, knock yourself out. All right. So what does that look like? So if we sort these in, it's just the exact same log I was just showing you. And going through, in order sequentially was a recipe for failure. And if we sort them, and it's a nice little one-liner in 3 parts now. We get win event log name security. You just saw me doing that. And this is actually the live security log I'm showing you here. The next demo I'll show you is the actual save log. Group object ID, no element. Group them by object ID. So in other words, group them. So this is a group, this is a group. Each ID is now grouped, and then sort by count. And that automatically sorts them. And I can tell you right now, event 4624 is garbage, and 4726 is worth looking at, and 4729 is worth looking at. These, anything with a count, say this is arbitrary. Certainly 4 or less I check out. 2 or less I would definitely check out. And the beauty of this, you can run this across 10,000 systems, and it's not only, you could sort them not only per PC, but it could be, if one of these occurs on 1 out of 10,000, the count will be 1. If one of these occurred on 10,000 systems, the count will be 10,000. So it scales. It automatically scales to giant environments. And as a simple exercise for your SOC, which is going to be much more effective for tactical fighting and not just compliance, is have a trained analyst sit down at least once a day to do this across your entire environment. And what you'll find is you're going to get a lot of value out of that. And you'll find you're going to want to turn that into a process and automate that. And eventually put it up on a screen, perhaps. You have your big kind of like NASA-style war room looking thing. And maybe that graduates to its own like section of a screen that your SOC analyst can look at if you have that kind of like NASA-style SOC. All right, so, and then what are these events? What is event 4726? What is event 4729? Let's look now. And we'll start with the fat end of the tail. Account was successfully logged on with a count of 13,000 or so. Garbage. Special privileges aside a new logon. Garbage. Account was logged off. Garbage. This is just noise. In a big environment, you have millions of these things. Ignore them. What's down here? The long end of the tail. A user account was deleted. That's interesting. A local account in a domain environment, that would be unusual. A member was removed from a security-enabled global group. Okay, that's locally now. A local account was created, a local account was enabled, a member was added to a security-enabled global group, and key migration operation. I believe this key migration operation was involved with me maliciously or pseudo-maliciously turning on RDP for the first time as part of an exploit, where I came in with Metasploit, I used Meterpreter, I turned on RDP, remote desktop, and I wanted a desktop. So these are all actually useful. These events here were me adding a user, adding them a local administrators group, and later on cleaning up my work. All of this is stuff you want to know about in a large environment, or really any environment. All right, let's go back to my command. Let's see how we did over there. And it ran. All right. So let's make this a little. So I ran it, and the reason I hopped away was because it takes a while to kind of churn through all that, those 30,000 odd events. So I said get win event. This is just like what I showed you before. And we're missing a sort count, I think. Yeah, there we go. So get win event. I put the path in of my little, again, you want a copy of this log, just email me, econrad@gmail.com. We'll probably dress it up so that it'll be linked directly off wherever you find this. So look there, look for the links there, and if you don't see it there, email me. I promise I'll hook you up. And I do travel a lot, so give me time to come up for air. And with a group object ID, no element, meaning just group each by the ID, and then we'll sort by count. And again, once again, the most useful ones are at the top, the less useful ones are at the bottom. And now, if you're wondering what are these things, we can actually dig into this now. And I think I have a filter hash table here ready to go. What is 4726? And here I have get win event, filter hash table, dash filter hash table. I set my path to be the local file. Again, this little / thing. That's the way PowerShell does this file in this directory. Unlike cmd.exe, but like Unix and Linux, the current directory is not in your path for security purposes. And this / says this file in this directory because I'm in the directory. T510 security.ebtx. And ID is 4726. What is that ID? In fact, let me open a different window to do this because I want to keep this up here. Let me grab a different window. So we'll hop over here. I'll do this over here. I can type good. All right. So I think I'm in the right directory, and because I want to leave this up, so let's just do this. A user account was deleted. Let's click at 4729. A member was removed from security-enabled group. I could probably get a little more of this. Global group. 4720. User account was created. A count of 2 now. 4722. User account was enabled. 5059. You could, of course, script this and automate all of this. What tends to happen is people do it ad hoc. They get massive value out of it, and then they turn it into a process. Everyone loves process. I get it. Key migration operation. I think, again, if I remember, this is going back a few years. I think this was when I installed RDP as an attacker, though. 4728. Member was added. That was me adding a local user to local admin, which you want to know about for sure. And a large attack popularized Christmas time 2013. You know who I'm talking about. Um, they came in, they hacked. This is according to the New York Times. The attackers came into the HVAC vendor. They hacked through a local web application, allowing the HVAC vendor to get access to the corporate network. They grabbed a token, a security access token from domain admin, and now that's off topic for this talk, but man, learn about security access tokens. They are the bomb. And impersonated that token, became domain admin, added a second domain admin account, well, another domain admin account for themselves, and then they were invisible and all powerful, and bad things happened. So abuse of administrator accounts often features heavily in real-world attacks. I'm down to 4717. I'm just going to check out the counts of 4 or less. Maybe I'll go 8 or less just to kind of round this out. System security access was granted to an account. 4733. Member was removed. 4732. Member was added in 1101. We'll round this out there. Audit events have been dropped by the transport. Not sure what that is. It's an error. Don't know what's going on there. Worth checking out. And the beauty of this, once you automate this, let's turn out, I don't know, I haven't looked at this one yet, but let's say that this is not useful. It's just kind of noise, an error, but systems kick off errors all the time. It's very, very easy to ignore things later on once you kind of turn this into a process. And just to prove our point, I'll look at the counts of 1,000 plus. So let's go to 4624. It's going to fly by, of course. Logged on, don't care. 4672. Special privileges assigned, obviously noise. It happens literally day and night. 4634. Account was logged off. That happens constantly. 4907. All garbage. All right. So there you go. And that wraps up what I want to talk about today. So again, thanks, folks. Little long tail analysis. Check it out in your environment, your large environment. You want a copy of that event log. Check out the links associated with this talk. And if not, email me. But check the links. I suspect it'll be there. And then you don't need to email me, but I'm happy to take the email. I am, again, Eric_Conrad on Twitter. Love to hear from you. Love to see you at a future event. 511's going on a world tour. We're taking it around the world, literally. You like hands-on stuff like that? We do it. Speaking of DNS, we have labs on that. Pulling down registry run keys, sorting from most common to least common. We do that live in a live Windows network. And that's Security 511. Check it out. Sec511.com. Seth or I would love to see you in the future and anywhere in the world. Hope to see you then. Thanks, folks. I'll talk to you later and hopefully see you in the future.